Some places aren't lonely because nobody lives there. They're lonely because the world moved on and they didn't. Every town on this list still has people. What they're missing is everything else. This isn't about ghost towns. It's about places where life continues just without much of a society to support it. Number 10. McDermitt, Nevada, Oregon. Let's start in the high desert, right on the Nevada-Oregon line. McDermitt is split down the middle by a state border, and kind of forgotten by both sides. Around 300 people still call this place home. That's enough to keep a post office running, a gas station open, maybe a school. But it's not enough to keep the town connected to anything beyond itself. The nearest hospital? Hours away. A major city? Not part of the conversation. The loneliness here isn't dramatic. You won't find abandoned skyscrapers or viral photos of decay. What you'll find is distance. Not just physical distance, but distance from opportunity, from services, from the sense that help is close by if you need it. Most young people leave when they can. The ones who stay learn to live with fewer options and stop expecting things to change. McDermitt still functions barely. It survives, but it doesn't grow. And nobody outside really notices. This is the kind of loneliness that creeps in slowly. Stores close earlier each year. Roads feel longer. Fewer people remember how things used to be. McDermitt isn't empty, and it's not abandoned. It's just far enough away that the world forgets to check in. Number 9. Terlingua, Texas. Head south to the Texas border, where the land opens up and the heat never really leaves. This is Terlingua, a former mining town sitting just outside Big Bend National Park. Maybe 100 people live here, depending on the season. But Terlingua doesn't work like a normal town anymore. There's no real grocery store, no hospital, no proper school system. Getting basic services means long drives through empty desert, under a sun that makes every mile feel twice as long. Terlingua didn't fade slowly. It collapsed. When the mercury mines shut down, the economy vanished almost overnight. What's left is a scattering of ruins, trailers, and makeshift homes across the desert. Some people ended up here because they had nowhere else to go. Others came because they wanted to disappear. The loneliness here isn't quiet, it's exposed. There's nowhere to hide from it. Conversations are rare, and when they happen, they're brief. Everyone knows everyone, not because the community is tight-knit, but because there aren't many people left. Life in Terlingua requires self-reliance. If something breaks, you fix it yourself or live without it. If you need help, it's far away. Eventually, that distance changes how you think. You stop assuming things will be available. You stop assuming anyone's coming. Terlingua isn't dead. People still wake up here every morning. But the desert's already taken most of what a town is supposed to provide. Number 8. Eureka, Nevada. Drive north through Nevada and you'll hit Eureka, sitting along U.S. Route 50, often called the loneliest road in America. A few hundred people still live here. On paper, it looks functional. There's a courthouse, a school, some businesses. But geography tells the real story. The nearest major city is hours away in any direction. Once you leave town, the landscape offers no reassurance that help is anywhere near. Isolation in Eureka isn't a feeling, it's a fact. Winters are brutal. Snow shuts down roads without warning. When that happens, the town doesn't just feel cut off, it is. Kids grow up knowing that staying means limiting their future. Most leave, not because they want to, but because the map gives them no real choice. The people who remain learn to plan ahead, stock up early, and rely on themselves more than on systems. Eureka doesn't collapse like old mining towns did. It endures. But endurance has its cost. Routines shrink. Social circles get smaller. Fewer things happen. The loneliness here is steady, not dramatic. It comes from repetition, same faces, same roads, same spaces, year after year. Eureka still functions, but it exists in a kind of geographic silence, too far away to matter in the national conversation. Number 7. Hanksville, Utah. East into southern Utah, where the land turns to red rock, desert, and deep canyons. This is Hanksville, surrounded by some of the West's most dramatic scenery and some of its deepest isolation. Fewer than 300 people live here. There's basically one road in and out. Everything else is distance. The nearest hospital is hours away. Supplies require planning. Running out of gas or food isn't an inconvenience here, it's a serious mistake. Hanksville isn't empty, but it feels exposed. The open land offers no sense of protection, no feeling that help is nearby. At night, the darkness is complete. Cell service vanishes once you leave town. Silence becomes something you can feel. People here learn to be prepared. Extra water, extra fuel, extra time. You don't assume someone will pass by. You don't assume anyone will notice if you don't show up. That kind of isolation reshapes how you live. Social interactions become practical rather than casual. Community exists, but it's small and functional, built on necessity more than choice. The loneliness isn't about being unseen, it's about being far. Far from services, far from options, far from the comfort of knowing the world is close. People still live here, still raise families. But the land reminds them constantly, you're on your own. Number 6. Whittier, Alaska. Jump north to Alaska. Way north. This is Whittier, a coastal town wedged between mountains and water, where isolation isn't just atmospheric, it's built into the infrastructure. About 200 people live here, and nearly all of them share the same building. The Baggage Towers isn't just an apartment complex, it's the entire town. Inside you'll find homes, a post office, a small store, even a school. Step outside? Not much else. Whittier has exactly one way in and out. A single-lane tunnel through the mountain. At night, it closes. When that happens, the town is sealed off. No late arrivals. No quick exits. The outside world just stops existing. Life here is shaped by containment. Same faces every day. Same hallways, same routines. Privacy? Limited. But loneliness doesn't disappear, it just changes form. Winters are long and dark. Storms roll in and shut things down with no warning. When weather closes the tunnel, Whittier becomes an island, even though it's technically connected to the mainland. Community here isn't optional, you inherit it. That creates closeness, but it also magnifies tension. There's nowhere to reset. Nowhere to disappear. People still make it work, still raise families, but when the tunnel closes and the weather turns, the loneliness doesn't come from being alone. It comes from knowing there's nowhere else to go. Number 5. Lost Springs, Wyoming. Back to the American interior. To a place so small it barely registers. This is Lost Springs, Wyoming, one of the tiniest incorporated towns in the country. The population hovers between 1 and 4 people. Not households, people. Some days, the entire town could fit around a kitchen table. Lost Springs exists on paper. It has a mayor. It has town limits. The state recognizes the name. But socially, it's barely there. No neighborhoods, no businesses, no real public life. Here, loneliness is concentrated. Every absence is immediately noticeable. When one person leaves, the town changes. When someone gets sick, there's no backup. No nearby help. No margin for error. Life in Lost Springs requires constant awareness. You plan everything. You prepare for isolation not as an occasional thing, but as a permanent condition. Unlike bigger isolated towns, Lost Springs doesn't have the illusion of community. No events, no shared routines, no casual encounters. Social interaction depends entirely on who happens to be there, and that can change without warning. The loneliness isn't emotional or dramatic. It's logistical. It's understanding that society has been reduced to its smallest possible unit, and continuity depends on a handful of people choosing not to leave. Number 4. Chicken, Alaska. Back to Alaska. To a place whose name sounds funny, but whose reality is anything but. This is Chicken, a settlement so small and remote, it feels almost temporary. The population usually stays under 20. In winter, even lower. There's no real town center, no formal streets. Homes and buildings are scattered across the land, separated by long stretches of nothing. What defines chicken isn't just how few people live here, it's how long the darkness lasts. Winters are brutally cold, and daylight disappears for weeks. The sun barely rises, if at all. Time slows down, days blur together. In a place like this, loneliness isn't just emotional. It's physical. Lack of light messes with your sleep, your mood, your sense of reality. Without regular human contact, isolation seeps into your body as much as your mind. There are no nearby cities to escape to. Roads are limited. Travel depends on weather, fuel, timing. When winter closes in, leaving isn't simple, it's a risk. People who stay learn to endure. They fill the long nights with routines, repairs, small tasks that give structure to the darkness. Conversations matter more because they're rare. Silence becomes something you have to manage. In a place where night lasts for months, loneliness isn't temporary. It stays, quietly, with the dark. Number 3, Valentine, Nebraska. Back to the center of the country, to the wide-open plains of Nebraska. This is Valentine, and at first glance, it doesn't look lonely at all. Valentine has a few thousand residents, schools, stores, restaurants, a functioning main street. People work here, raise families, live ordinary lives. On the surface, it feels stable. But geography tells a different story. Valentine sits deep in the Great Plains, surrounded by grassland stretching in every direction. No nearby cities to absorb excess population. No regional hubs pulling people in. Everything is far, and nothing nearby is growing. The loneliness here isn't sudden, it's gradual. Quiet streets after sunset. Limited options for young people. The sense that leaving is the only real path forward. Many do leave not because the town is failing, but because staying means narrowing your future. Over time, that outflow reshapes everything. Social circles shrink, schools get smaller, familiar faces disappear, replaced by the same routines repeating endlessly. Valentine still functions. It still has community, but it exists in a kind of demographic pause big enough to survive, too small and too remote to attract what it loses. This is a different kind of loneliness. Not collapse or isolation, but stagnation. Life continues, just without momentum. Valentine isn't being abandoned, it's being slowly thinned out. And in the middle of the plains, that quiet erosion feels just as isolating as distance or darkness. Number 2. Monowi, Nebraska. Not far from Valentine, still in Nebraska, loneliness hits a different scale entirely. This is Monowi, a town that technically still exists, even though almost everyone is gone. The population is one. One resident, one voter, one set of footsteps moving through the entire town. Monowi still has a mayor, a post office, a town charter, but they all belong to the same person. She runs the local bar, she maintains the library, she signs the paperwork that keeps Monowi legally alive. This isn't a ghost town. Ghost towns are empty. Monowi is inhabited. That difference matters. The loneliness here isn't about distance or climate. It's about continuity. Every role that once belonged to a community now rests on one person. No casual encounters. No spontaneous conversations. No one to share the burden of memory. When something breaks, there's no one nearby to help. When something changes, there's no one to discuss it with. Even routine decisions echo louder when there's no second voice in the room. Monowi doesn't fade in and out of isolation. It's constant. No off-season, no crowd that comes and goes. The town exists only as long as one person chooses to stay. And that choice carries real weight. Because as long as she remains, Monowi survives not as a thriving place, but as an idea. Proof that a town doesn't disappear the moment people leave. It disappears when the last person stops caring enough to hold it together. Monowi is lonely because the entire concept of community has been reduced to a single human life. Number 1. Supai, Arizona. At the bottom of the Grand Canyon, far below the rim and far from any highway, sits Supai, Arizona. No roads lead in. No cars. No direct access to the outside world. Everything that reaches Supai comes on foot, by helicopter or by mule. Several hundred people live here, families, kids, elders. Supai isn't a remnant, it's a functioning community. There's a school, a clinic, a post office. Life goes on day after day in one of the most isolated places in America. But the isolation is absolute. No quick exit, no spontaneous trip. Every journey out requires hours of hiking or a rare helicopter flight. Mail still arrives by mule. Groceries are limited by what can be carried in. The loneliness here doesn't come from absence. It comes from enclosure. The canyon walls don't just surround the town, they define it. The outside world exists, but at a distance that's always felt. When emergencies happen, help is delayed by geography. When supplies run low, patience becomes mandatory. Life here demands planning, endurance, and acceptance of limits most places don't face anymore. And yet Supai endures. Unlike the other towns on this list, Supai hasn't been thinned out or forgotten. It remains inhabited because people choose to stay, to raise families, preserve culture, maintain connection in a place where leaving is never easy. That's what makes Supai the loneliest town in America. Not because nobody lives there, but because those who do carry the full weight of isolation every single day. In Supai, loneliness isn't the absence of society. It's society existing entirely on its own.